Farr House is named after George Henry Farr, the second headmaster of St. Peter's College. He is important because he is the man responsible for building the foundations of our great school. He truly built on foundations that are strong and lovely and of good report. In 1987, Ian Hume founded the newest day boy house in the school. He too was a man of action. He made things happen. Starting anything is not easy. The first headmaster of St. Peter's College, the Reverend Wilson, worked hard to establish the school, but eventually decided he preferred writing sermons, and it was preferable to the hot, dusty conditions of the school emerging on the edge of town. For 4 years, the school searched for a new headmaster. Eventually, George Henry Farr was chosen, and he had beaten 28 other candidates, and the young Anglican cleric had triumphed over his humble and difficult beginning. As a young boy, Farr had watched his father's business fail and had to rely on a charity scholarship at Christ Hospital. There were no expansive playing fields or elegant buildings, and the schoolyard overlooked the Newgate prison. For entertainment, the boys would stand on each other's shoulders and watch the hangings over the fence. Farr, as an older student, was assigned the task of helping the teachers, and he was given the responsibility of looking after a dorm of 40 wild and unruly boys. Not surprisingly, he found the task challenging. To maintain his authority, Farr was forced to rely on a heavy walking stick, which he called his life preserver. One night, the boys rose up in a revolt and attacked him as he slept. Using a broom and his belt, he was able to beat them back and drove them away in a panic. 4 of the ringleaders were flogged, locked up in isolation, and then finally expelled. But Farr's victory came at a cost. He collapsed with rheumatic fever and was ill for nearly a year. Once he had recovered, he moved to Pembroke College, Cambridge University, where he excelled at the study of classics, Latin and maths. Farr was also captain of boats at Cambridge and the stroke of their very successful first 8. In 1844 he married Julia Ord, who was to be the great partner in his life. In 1852 Farr brought his young wife Julia and his daughter to the other side of the world and to what was effectively a frontier wilderness. The 4-month voyage was marred by an outbreak of the measles. The ship's doctor was constantly drunk, and there were shortages of food and water for both the crew and passengers. A violent storm threatened to send them all to watery graves, and a near mutiny from the crew must have had Farr wondering if he had made the right decision to become the second headmaster of St. Peter's College. His confidence must have been further battered when the ship finally reached Port Misery, as Port Adelaide was known, with its makeshift docks, mangrove mudflats and lack of proper roads. It was miles away from the school. Farr eventually reached the school to find makeshift accommodation for his young family in the southern wing of Old Schoolhouse. There were no kitchen facilities, water was scarce and had to be drawn from a deep well in the centre of Allen Quadrangle. His new school had only 31 boarders and 33 day boys. His wife, Julia Farr, proved a wonderful ally, running the boarding house and raising 7 children of their own. Julia Farr was also active in the community, helping set up in 1860 an orphans' home for young destitute women, and in 1878 she was the driving force in establishing a home for those suffering from physical disabilities. Farr had inherited a fledgling school where bullying, caning and fighting were common. Farr realised he could not just stop this culture, and he demanded that the young men of the school who could not settle their differences without fighting would do so in front of the whole school using boxing gloves. In his first 2 years as headmaster, there was only the one fight. Farr was determined to produce young gentlemen. He once received a letter from a lady who complained about the rudeness of 2 Saints boys. Farr had them brought before the entire Council of Governors to explain their conduct and threaten them with expulsion should it ever happen again. Farr encouraged not only service and academic excellence, but he was constantly trying to build the physical and sporting talents of the boys. Under his leadership, athletics, gymnastics, rowing and the new sport of Australian rules all flourished. Today we have a long and proud and successful history of sporting successes at St. Peter's College. Farr had proved to be a truly outstanding headmaster, and he was quoted as stating that the most important quality in a Saints boy was truthfulness. He judged a boy's character not by the scrapes he got into, but by the way he got out of them. One speech day he shocked the parents when he described a perfect boy as being a perfect monster, much to the acclaim of the boys present. Farr was a builder, and the school doubled and at one stage trebled in size under his wise leadership. Old schoolhouse was completed, the big schoolroom established for classes, and the honour boards erected to recognise the academic excellence of the school for years to come. In 1863 the chapel was finally completed, giving the school its spiritual heart. After 25 years, Farr had achieved what he had set out to do. However, as his retirement drew near, Farr had left behind the blueprint of the school of the future, with new science laboratories, classroom, gymnasium, and a permanent water supply. Not surprisingly, Farr was not idle during his retirement, playing a leading role in the establishment of the University of Adelaide, the Art Gallery, Library and Museum. He served on the Board of Governors. Farr died at the age of 85, and today we give thanks for a life of outstanding service, excellence and vision. The wonderful school we have today is a product of the foundations he laid 161 years ago. We are the custodians of a tradition built on the pursuit of service, excellence and the good name of St. Peter's College. Farr would be so very pleased to see what his school has become today. He may well be bewildered by the size of the school, the style of teaching and the pervading influence of technology, but he would recognise the spirit of the school and know that it still stood for all things that are strong and lovely and of good report.